we forget about the silent victims of incarceration, whom are our children. My incarceration left my kids devastated. Basically, there was a point in 2018 where my sister went over to the school to retrieve my daughter. My daughter was then living with one of my cousins, a family member. And they was taking really good care of her. She was in tap, dance, jazz, everything you name it, she was in it. And she's very smart and outgoing. However, at that time, she hadn't been separated from me, but maybe a year and a half. So I remember my sister saying, I was told to pick her up for an appointment. I was going to bring her to the dentist. And she said, I went to the school to sign her out. And then I spoke with her teacher when I knocked at the door, and I told her teacher, could you get her for me? I'm coming to pick her up early. Well, the teacher misinformed my daughter. She went in the classroom unknowingly, and she told my daughter to gather her things, that her mom was there. And so on this day, my daughter comes out of her classroom and she looks around and she doesn't see anybody but my sister there. And she loves my sister. She loves her to death. However, when the teacher said your mom was here, my daughter hopes was that I was going to be outside that door when she got there. And I wasn't. And this caused a little kid that at this time was in the second grade to have almost a nervous breakdown. She went into this hysterical crying stage where it did not stop. Everybody was so concerned that they took her to the hospital. And a doctor basically said, she needs to talk to someone because kids this age don't know how to express themselves. So imagine me being in a place where I'm helpless. Of course, we say goodbye to people that we get to know while we're incarcerated. Of course, people have to leave and they go home, which is a great thing. The young lady that I had met, who was a queen pin, who turned out to be my cousin, she had a really, really close friend who was incarcerated with us. She was less than a year from completing her sentence, so her paperwork was submitted over to halfway house for her to receive some halfway house time and or home confinement. And once it was reviewed, she had received 6 months. So it was time for her to leave and move on with her life. And so, of course, she was incarcerated with my friend, but my friend told me that honestly, she should have never been in prison. Those 8+ years out of this lady's life was because somebody threw her under the bus and she really didn't have anything to do with her case, that they had only had her answering a phone call. So it was something like me, phones. And so, we gave her this big party. It was a masquerade party in the visitation room where we made these masquerade masks and everything. Of course, the ladies would take sheets and cut them up down, put them on. And so you wouldn't believe some of the work that we create while we're incarcerated. Well, moving forward, she leaves and she goes home. And I remember that morning we set out, we're talking, and my best friend is basically telling her, hey, check on my kids while you're out there, because her kids were all incarcerated, 3 of them. But at this point, they've all been released within a month of each other. They're moving on with their lives. She's kind of worried about one of her kids. And so she's basically telling her friend to please reach out to him and look out for him. We're shedding our tears. We're watching her walk across that street because we know it'll be a long time, if ever we'll see her again. And I remember walking away from that situation, and we just went some kind of way into a conversation. And I remember I just said, I don't know what I would do if something bad happened to one of my kids while I was inside of here. Because when you're in prison, you don't get to grieve the same way you would grieve on the outside. I doubt that you can even grieve from the faces of stone that I've seen when people. There's a lot of grief in this place. And so it was a call that you never want to get if you're ever called down to the chaplain and you're not working there. And so I remember my friend shedded a tear when we was having that conversation. And she said, let's not talk about that. Let's just move on. And so we went to lunch that day and we laughed like we normally do. And we went on about our day. I had managed to stay out of trouble. So when I heard inmate 146879 Bush report immediately right now to your counselor's office, I was like, something is not right. Why is my counselor calling me? And moments before she had yelled that out, I had heard my really good friend name called out over the speaker, and they called her over to the chaplain. And so in my head, me and her had been doing church with the Messianic Jews. And that was because they had an open 3 hour slot where we were able to go in, sing and do praise and worship, and just have a good time with the ladies on the compound and fellowship. And so I'm getting out my bed and I'm getting ready to go over to the counselor's office. But before I can make it there, everybody's lined up saying, Bush, you're in trouble. What did you do? You don't do anything. Why is she calling you? So I turn the knob and I walk in this room and I see my camp counselor on the ground holding and consoling my really good friend. And at this point, tears is running down the counselor's eyes. My friend is screaming, kicking, and hollering hysterically. But I hear an unfamiliar voice, and it's coming from speakerphone. And the person is basically crying, saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I couldn't protect him. And so I'm not knowing what to do. My counselor gets up and I get down and I just start trying to console my friend. And I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong? What's wrong? What happened? And my friend is telling me my son was murdered. My son is dead. And it broke my heart. I had never been in a situation where something even in my life had happened like this before. I didn't know what to do and I didn't have the words to say. And so I'm telling her, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, friend. I'm crying. She's crying. The counselor is crying. And